Thanks a lot, guys. We're joined alongside a special guest today, Gene Battaglia of the RIT SportsZone, the voice of RIT men's ice hockey. Gene, how are you?
I'm great, Andrew. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem, Gene. And the RIT team, it was a bit of a Cinderella story for them in the playoffs. They defeated the second-seeded Air Force in the semifinals, went on to beat Robert Morris 7-4 in the championship game. Gene, what were your takeaways from that game?
It was an RIT team that finally was healthy all together at once. As a fifth seed, you don't normally see a team, going through the playoffs like RIT did, but getting goalie Mike Rotolo back was so huge for this team, not having a club goaltender, which they had to go with for nearly a month in February. So RIT was preseason number 2 in Atlantic hockey, right up there with Robert Morris. So in the end, you had the two best teams in the conference playing for it. And the benefit for RIT is they did it in front of the home crowd. So this is a Tiger team that, right now seems to be peaking at the right time, obviously.
Certainly peaking at the right time. RIT exploded in that championship game. Gene, let's transition on over now to this weekend's game. The RIT Tigers are facing off against the Quinnipiac Bobcats in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Familiar spot for RIT. They made it to this stage last season. They defeated the top-ranked Minnesota State. Is the vibe in the locker room different, or is it sort of they've been there, done that after defeating Minnesota State last year?
No, it's the old cliche house money, if you guys want to say that. It's, hey, we're here, and the pressure's not on us. So that's kind of been the sentiment around, the dressing room this week with RIT is that, they did this last year. Now, mind you, last year, different year, RIT had a top-scoring line, which 2/3 of that line is gone. This is an RIT team this year that is a little bit better on the blue line than they were last year. College hockey is not college basketball. You had a number 16 beat a number 1 last year, and here RIT is, again, in the same situation.
We're joined by Gene Battaglia, the voice of RIT Tigers hockey on RIT SportsZone Live. NCAA Regional is Saturday. Quinnipiac takes on RIT 4 o'clock from the Times Union Center in Albany. Gene, Quinnipiac is a high-powered offensive team this year. They run 4 lines, explosive on the power play and on the penalty kill, also very good in their own zone. How have the Tigers faced off this year against teams with high-powered offense?
Well, in Atlantic hockey, you really had only 2, I would say. Robert Morris was 3rd in the nation in scoring. Now, those numbers are kind of skewed. I understand that, playing in the conference. And Mercyhurst University was another team that played, with a lot of offense, not much back, on the blue line. What the challenge for RIT is the 4 lines that Quinnipiac is going to roll out here. The blue line, they're set. The 6 that RIT will send out, there's no holes there. You're not going to find any weaknesses matchup-wise. If the question is, can the RIT lines, the 3rd and 4th lines, keep up with the speed of Quinnipiac? Because I'm sure, your team is going to be rolling 4 lines pretty rapidly. Can RIT stick with that?
So the defense obviously is going to play an important role in this game. Gene, Quinnipiac's defense is also strong as well. Let's transfer on over now to the coaching job Wayne Wilson has done for the Tigers this year. He was very critical of his team earlier in the year, a 2-0 loss to Niagara, followed by a tough start to the season. They faced off against a few ECAC teams, 0-4 against ECAC teams. That tough loss to Niagara, sort of a wake-up call for this team. They went on and played tremendously well for the rest of the Atlantic hockey slate. But how good of a job has Wilson done with this team this year, getting them back to the NCAA tournament?
It's been an excellent job. Remember, know that RIT, they're like Union. They can't give out scholarships. There are no scholarship-based players for athletics on this team. So that being said, to get this team back to where they were last year, he's done an excellent job. Wilson, I think, understands that the college hockey season is so long. And for those early season non-conference games, Atlantic hockey is, it happened once where they got it in at-large, but you're never going to get it's going to be rare when you get that second team, so as an at-large. So knowing that, Wilson will experiment. He will play younger players for those non-conference games. And like you said, they didn't fare well in October. I mean, they were not too happy with the games Clarkson, St. Lawrence. They played Bowling Green. Really weren't in that game either. But that was back in October. So you have a much different team now. You guys did your homework. That Niagara game, yeah, that was a turning point. That was one of those rare nights where they did not put out an effort against one of the bottom teams in the nation. But that was a rivalry game, and RIT wasn't up for that. The challenge for RIT is what has happened this year was, after that game, Mike Rotolo gets hurt. And then the second-string goalie, 2 weeks later, Christian Short got hurt. The third-string goalie, his name was Ken McLean, he left the school right before the season started. So you had about a 3.5-week stretch where RIT didn't have a goaltender. So they had to reach down. There's a club hockey team there. So if you can imagine a club hockey player, he's still on the roster right now, Nick Amato. They did okay, but there's such a huge jump going from club hockey up to the Division I level. This team they didn't flinch. Other teams would have folded had they not, you knew that there was going to be a month going by without a real goaltender, so to speak. But that is a tribute to Wilson. And there was no excuse for this team not to continue to play hard, and they did scratch out some points. That's why they fell from probably a number 2 or maybe even a number 1 seed in Atlantic hockey down to number 5. It was the goaltending situation. But they weathered that storm. They got Rotolo healthy, and here they are today. I think Wilson's done a great job with this Tiger program.
So let's touch now on that goaltending situation. Rotolo missed 9 weeks with that ankle injury, got hurt earlier in the year against Mercyhurst, had some interesting words to say on that play, thought he was taken out of the play, came back in the playoffs, defeated Mercyhurst, the team that hurt him in the regular season. Just some words that Wayne Wilson has said on Rotolo. Mike's a very emotional guy. He's a fiery guy who gives our team a lift. Gene, how big of a lift was Rotolo in those playoffs?
Well, he's a guy that when you watch him play, he's going to be the one directing his defense and the traffic out in front. He's the guy that, he's not afraid to mix it up with the opposing team. His nickname is Dirty Mike. I can tell you all you need to know. So he looks more like an offensive guard than a goaltender. That's really his body type. But it kind of embodies the spirit of that defense that's in front of him. So do the Tigers have a hot goalie right now? I don't know. I'll say that. Yes, RIT won it, but Rotolo, you still let in 4 goals in the championship game. So, but could he get hot? I mean, that is obviously if RIT has any chance in this game on Saturday, it's got to be a 2-1, 1-0 type of game. And Rotolo, there's no margin for error in this game. Is he a goalie capable of doing that? Certainly. Has he stolen a game this year? Not exactly. He's played pretty well here down the stretch. Don't get me wrong, but he still could get it to a next level for RIT.
RIT's goaltending was certainly the difference in last year's NCAA tournament game against Minnesota State. But, Gene, let's transfer over to some more players to watch heading into the weekend. Possibly Miles Powell, who had a breakout game in that semifinal and championship games over the weekend in the Atlantic Hockey Tournament. Who are some of the players to watch upcoming in this regional?
Yeah, Powell is the beneficiary. Really, it's number 25, Josh Mitchell. 30 assists on the season. He's a guy, he was playing on the top line last year that kind of graduated, but that top line has the game-winning goal against Minnesota State. So Mitchell is the guy who sets up Powell. But then everybody on the defense, you're going to see our team will they pick their spots. They'll have their defensemen pitch. All 6 guys can score. So you have the Norris twins, you have Alexander Kukali, you have number 12, Greg Amlong. Amlong's an interesting story. This is actually his 4th trip to the NCAA tournament. His first 2 years, he was at UMass Lowell, and then transferred over to RIT. So he's certainly got some experience. All 6 guys on that defense have played in NCAA games. So it's a team that has some talent up front. They don't really have any stars. None of these guys are going to go on to play in the NHL, but they play well together. So we'll see what happens.
Gene Battaglia of the RIT SportsZone, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Really looking forward to the game on Saturday, and I appreciate the invite, guys.
No problem. NCAA regional game is Saturday at 4 o'clock. Quinnipiac takes on RIT. That's enough for me. Back to you guys.